Neverending Chain by Dragon Translator. Chapter 14. I Need You Calm. Hiccup turned around to face the Queen, tilting his head. He has saved my daughter, and that grants him our help. Right now, you are that help, and he would be well advised to remember that. The Queen stared over Hiccup's shoulder as she said that. Hiccup heard a rustle. He turned his back, finding the Squadron had lowered his head. "As you wish, Queen of the Nest," he said, sounding resigned. Hiccup did note that neither of the Squadron's parents protested the Queen's harsh tone to their son. He made a mental note to ask Toothless and Sharpshot later. If they were to be speaking and interacting with more leaders of flocks, pods, and nests, Hiccup knew he needed to know how not to offend the other leaders. He did look to the two Squadrons. He had a question that needed answering right then. "Sir, ma'am," he began, "can you spray water without heating it?" The pod leader blinked. "An unusual question, Land Alpha," he asked. "Why do you wish to know?" "I know tidal-class dragons can't stand being out of the water too long. I'm not sure how long will be, and I don't want his skin to dry out." The pod leader smiled. "I see," he said. "Again, you show your wisdom and care, Land Alpha." He looked to the Queen. "May my mate and I keep our son's skin hydrated?" "Of course," the Queen said, before looking to the other changelings and chittered. "They now know that your spitting is not to be seen as an attack." "Thank you, Queen of this Nest," the pod leader said, before he and his mate walked back into the waves, lapping the shores. They both gathered a mouthful of water before heading over to their son. The pod leader waited until the last boulder was removed, and the changelings and Hiccup were out of the way. He then gently sprayed his son with the water, careful not to hit the injured wing. The mother then sprayed her son's back, also careful not to hit the wing. The young Squadron hummed, staring at Hiccup. The parents stepped back and smiled at Hiccup. "I see why my mate has allied our pod with you," the mother said. Hiccup smiled, rubbing the back of his neck. He coughed before turning to the Squadron. He slipped around to look at the wing and winced again. Bone jutted up and down, but not through the skin. Hiccup turned to the royal pair. "Ma'am," he began, "do you know where we can find some young trees about this big around?" he said, holding his hands up with the longest finger and thumbs both touching. "How will trees help?" the King asked. "We can fashion them into a splint to keep the wing straight while the bone heals," Hiccup said. "We will also need some vines to tie the splint together." The Queen blinked. She looked over her shoulder and chirped. The four that had removed the boulders flew up and inland. They returned soon. Two carried the trees Hiccup asked for, while two carried many vines. They laid them down near to Hiccup. He smiled. "Thank you," was all he said to them before they could move away. The changelings chittered, and Hiccup got the impression that they were surprised. One changeling tipped his head before the four returned to their spots near to the cliff face. Hiccup returned to the royal pair. "May some of my friends approach?" he asked. "I will need their aid." "Any who are needed may do so," the Queen replied. Hiccup turned to his friends. "Gouda, Snotlout, and Fishlegs," he called. All three dismounted and walked over to him. He saw Astrid glare at him. He looked at the young Nadder and then faced his intended again. She sighed and tipped her head. Hiccup smiled. He still needed someone to keep an eye on the Nadder, and he trusted Astrid and Stormfly to do so. "Snot, you and Fish shear the bark off those trees, and make sure no splinter is sticking out," Hiccup said. The two boys moved to the trees. They pulled belt daggers and went to kneel. A loud screech on the cliff had everyone looking up. A slightly smaller changeling hissed down at Snotlout and Fishlegs. Hiccup moved over, looking up and holding his hands out in a placating manner. "They won't hurt anyone," he said softly. "I promise." "You lie!" the changeling screeched. "Humans with weapons can't be trusted!" It opened its mouth. Green acid shot out. It sizzled against an iridescent barrier. Hiccup heard snarls as a young-sounding squawking hiss. Let me up! Hiccup spun. Shadowfire sat upon the young Nadder. Stormfly had taken her beak to the front of the Nadders. Hook, Fang, Toothless, and Meatlug kept an eye upon the Changewing. Gouda, Hiccup said, gesturing to the Squadron. Use his pain. Guys, shear those trees. He rushed to the Nadder before the words were all the way out of his mouth. Stormfly moved back. Hiccup dropped in front of the Nadder, grabbing his jaw. Calm, he said. The Nadder crooned, eyes alternating between dilating and slitting. Calm, Hiccup repeated, firmly. The Nadder whimpered. He blamed you, my alpha. Hiccup ran his fingertips over the top of the Nadder's muzzle. Elder Gita had my back, he said softly. We are guests here. I should have told them what I was going to have Snotlout and Fishlegs do. This was on me. But you shouldn't have tried to kill you. You can't die, my alpha. I don't want to live in a world like before. I don't want to live in any other nest but yours. Shh. Hiccup soothed. I need you calm, young one. The Nadder crooned, but Hiccup felt as if the dragon was beginning to relax. He looked up at Shadowfire and nodded. Shadowfire moved away. The Nadder stood. Hiccup stood with him, still scratching the Nadder's beak. Will you be okay? Hiccup asked. I will try to remain calm, my alpha. Hiccup scratched the Nadder's jaw. Just please, stay with Astrid and Stormfly. None shall harm your queen, my alpha. That I vow. Hiccup stepped back. Sharpshot crawled up and latched upon the harness claw holds. Hiccup curled his neck. Brother? He asked. The queen of this nest said all who are needed can approach, and you need a guard. Hiccup sighed, but did not tell Sharpshot to get down. In truth, he missed having his brother's weight upon his back. He looked up, catching Astrid's gaze. She stared down at him, eyes narrowed. He subtly shook his head, his gaze cutting to the young Nadder. Astrid's eyes narrowed more, and her hands gripped the handles upon Stormfly's saddle until her knuckles were white. Hiccup expected her to disregard his wish and dismount anyways. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed this one. Okay, so this Nadder is very protective of Hiccup. I see him as a traumatized kid who's trying to protect his leader, and that's literally what he is. And I like what Hiccup's doing here with the silent communication with Astrid. First putting a hand on her leg and then just being able to talk without words. It's very powerful. She's annoyed and I know she feels powerless, but he's trusting her to keep an eye on things, which is what a queen does when the king's away. So I can approve of that, very much so. Anyway, yeah, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.